President Santos, welcome from Davos.
Thank you for having me.
So I have to ask you, this time last year, there you all were, and in the middle of this conference was President Trump's inauguration with that American carnage speech, the America First speech, and the darkness. Do you remember what you all were thinking at that time in Davos?
Yes, I remember very well. It was the world upside down. The Chinese Prime Minister was here in Davos, and he was promoting free trade, investment, open economies. And the people were saying, why is the Chinese saying that? And we're hearing from the U.S. the contrary, protectionism and control trade. So it was the world upside down. That was the mood last year.
And what do you think has changed about the intervening year? I'm hearing that most Davos goers believe that this populist wave is waning.
Well, what I hope that everybody understands is that putting your country, could be the United States, Colombia, or whatever country first, is not incompatible with free trade, with economic integration. On the contrary, if you want to protect the interest of your country, you better be a proactive player in a world which is every day smaller, more globalized.
So what do you expect? What are all your fellow leaders talking about as President Trump prepares to come and deliver the closing address on Friday?
I hope that his message will be one of integration with the rest of the world. No economy, however big it might be, can survive by itself in today's world. And the U.S. or any country will be much better off if they play with the rest of the world.
Given President Trump's Twitter diplomacy and the threats from North Korea and again that region, what would you say to him about diplomacy if you had the chance?
Well, I am in no position to give advice to President Trump, but what I would not do is to have my foreign relations administered by tweet, because in a tweet you only can express your emotions. You cannot argue, you cannot put your state of mind or your reasons in a logical way. So I think the tweet and diplomacy are not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing that obviously affects your region vis-à-vis President Trump and the America First doctrine is, of course, NAFTA, the constant threat to either radically change it or even ditch it. Do you think that that's what's going to happen?
I hope not. Nobody will gain by doing away with NAFTA. Mexico would lose, the United States would lose, Canada would lose, and I think the whole region would lose.
And what would you say to the president who's constantly telling his people, his base, his voters, that NAFTA is very bad for American workers?
Well, I would say that NAFTA is not bad for the American workers. I think NAFTA is good for everybody. And the United States will be better off in the long run if they open up to the rest of the world. If they close, the United States will be the one that will hurt the most.
Let me ask you about your region now. You are bang next door to Venezuela, which appears to be imploding politically and economically. And there are stunning statistics about the number of desperate Venezuelans coming across the border to your country. I think over the last year, nearly 250,000 Venezuelans. I mean, those are staggering numbers. How are you dealing with them? Your own economy is not faring brilliantly.
Yes, this is a major concern to us, and it's something that every day is a matter of discussion. Every day we have more and more Venezuelans coming into Colombia. So far we have been able to absorb them, but we are very concerned. I talked about this with the Secretary General of the United Nations that went to Colombia a few days ago. We're going to set up a scheme to see how we can deal with this increasing problem, because it's like a snowball. It increases every day, And of course, it's of a great concern to us.
So explain to our viewers, both in the United States and around the world, why they're so desperate. And by the way, apparently, a total of more than 1 million Venezuelans has special cards to allow them to come and buy scarce goods in your country.
Unfortunately, the Venezuelan regime has not accepted help in terms of food or medicine. We have offered them, but they are in a state of denial. They say, no, we don't have a crisis. And therefore, they reject not only our offer of help, but the international community, which is absurd. People are dying of hunger and lack of medicine, and the government simply doesn't accept that there is a crisis. So it's very difficult to manage, but the Venezuelans that are coming to Colombia are welcome with open arms and open hearts. I think it's our duty to do that.
So let's get back to the FARC peace process. Is that sticking? Are the people of Colombia still supporting the fact that you made peace with these very, very brutal and violent guerrillas?
Well, yes, because we have had the most tranquil and the safest year in 50 years last year, precisely because the FARC gave up their arms and are now a political party. People are now going to regions where they never went because of the war. Of course, this takes time. There's still a lot of discussions about where you draw the line between peace and justice. Some people are still not in agreement with what we did. That is comprehensible. I understand that. But the step that we took to finish a war of 50 years with such consequences that we had, and now we're living a new life, this is something that the Colombians are more and more appreciating.
So how much of a threat is the fact that the other big group, the ELN, another major rebel group, has not solidified any kind of peace agreement with you despite your efforts? And in fact, they've been attacking security forces, blowing up a pipeline, an oil pipeline.
Well, this is a much smaller group, and we have sat down again. The day before yesterday, I ordered my chief negotiator to go to Quito, where they're meeting with the ELN, to negotiate a new ceasefire in order to continue with the negotiations. We have already agreed on an agenda, and hopefully, if what they say that they are serious about reaching an agreement, if that is true, then from our part, we have all the will in the world to reach an agreement as soon as possible, and that would be a very important step forward. But as I say, at this very moment, they are discussing a new ceasefire, and I hope we can reach an agreement soon on that also.
In August, your 8-year term comes to an end. What do you think was the biggest challenge, the most difficult thing that you had to do as president? And what do you believe and hope your legacy will be?
Well, there's no doubt that the biggest challenge was to finish a war of 54 years. And thank God we were able to do that. And at the same time, we started to construct peace. I say that constructing peace is like constructing a cathedral. You have to have a solid base, and then brick by brick. And what we have done on the other areas, on the social area, for example, Colombia has been the country in Latin America that has narrowed more the gap between the rich and the poor. We took out of poverty more than 5 million Colombians. We have made education free for every kid in Colombia in public schools. We now have universal coverage in health. We have advanced a lot in the social indicators. We have a stronger economy, with no doubt than what we had 8 years ago, a more inclusive economy and a more inclusive democracy because of the peace process. And I hope that my successor continues building on what we have built.
It's an amazing turnaround.
We have a brighter future. Of course, we still have a long way to go, but fortunately, what any head of state can say, we advanced in the right direction.
Well, by any standards, it's a success story. President Juan Manuel Santos, thank you for joining us from Davos.
Thank you, Christiane.